Look up there. Just slide down there. Hi there everyone. Sophie and I have decided to take a quick trip down to Cape Naturalist. We're going to just spend the night here. We got down just after lunch and we wanted to get down here fairly early because we weren't too sure what the conditions were going to do. The wind is actually changing around a fair bit. So we've been exploring a few locations that I'm fairly familiar with, like Meelup Beach and also Smith's Beach a little bit further south. The wind started off coming from the south and then it swung round and is a bit of an easterly at the moment. So we wanted to just suss out which locations had the least amount of wind. As it turns out, the Geograph Bay, which is usually fairly protected, is getting some pretty strong onshore winds. So we've come round to the west side and we're protected by a few of the hills and the dunes from the winds, which, as I said, is now an easterly. One of the things that has made this trip out here so wonderful is the wildflowers are out at the moment and the bush is just a mass of pinks and oranges and purples. There's a few orchids out as well as the kangaroo paws. It's just wonderful to be out in the country when those wildflowers are blooming. It's just a beautiful time of the year. We've come out to Sugarloaf Rock. So we've been here many times before, but it's always good to explore and visit locations that you've been to before and to have that challenge of trying to find a new composition. So we've been exploring for probably 30 or 40 minutes. So I've decided to come round to the southern side of Sugarloaf Rock. It's behind you at the moment. I'll swing you around and you can have a look. As the afternoon's gone by, the cloud has moved around a fair bit and it's moving northeast. And so to the south, there isn't much cloud at all. So my thought process is to come round to the southern side of Sugarloaf Rock. I'll be able to get the side of the Sugarloaf Rock to the west side lit by the setting sun. And the hope is that I'm also going to have some cloud just above Sugarloaf Rock that's going to catch some of the light from the sunset. So there's Sugarloaf Rock there. You can see the cloud in the sky there. Nice wispy cloud that will hopefully light up nicely from the sunset. The sun is setting in the west, which is over to my left there, just behind that rock. Sophie, by the way, is having a sleep down the bottom there. She's nice and comfortable, protected from the wind, which, as I said, is coming from behind us. That's why we're behind this rock. Anyway, I think this is the location. I'm going to set up my tripod and see whether I can work out a composition that is going to simplify this scene a little bit. When I do, I'll get back to you. I've set the camera up onto the tripod. I've got the 17 to 35mm lens on the front of the D850. As you can see on the front here, I've got the Lee mount. I've got a polarizer on the front that's pretty much just cutting out the glare on the surface of the water. The rocks around here are quite dry, so I haven't got any glare from there. Now the polarizer cuts down some of the light, but I've also got a 0.6 soft graduated filter from Lee on the front there as well. I've got that slightly tilted because I've got the majority of my light coming from the left hand side and the right hand side is a little bit darker. The sun hasn't set just yet, so I'm still getting a little bit of light just on the rock face to the west, and the waves are rolling in and they're in cycles, and there's some foam being thrown around and swirling around with the current just in front. So I'm trying to get that in as part of some foreground interest. I've had a little bit of a play around here to try and get some of the rocks in the foreground as well, just on the edge of the water. But I'm actually struggling a little bit here for two reasons. One is the scene is still so contrasted. I've got a lot of light in the sky, and the parts of the rock that aren't getting the light from the sun directly are quite dark. So as well as the filters that I'm using to even up the light across the scene, I'm also bracketing 5 shots. So I set my exposure at f8, ISO 64 and 1/3 of a second, and then at a bracket of 5 I'm exposing 2 shots below, one at 1 stop below and another one at 2 stops below, and then exactly the same 2 shots above that exposure, 1 stop above and then another one at 2 stops above. The second thing I'm struggling with a little bit is the composition. I don't think I've got it quite right. So I've taken this shot. I'm now going to move a little bit further up the rock behind me and try and get another angle down. So I'm looking down on the water a little bit more and see whether I can get more of the clouds in the background in the sky in the shot as well, because they've started to move off away from the rock and some of them are actually being hidden behind the rock. So if I move up a little bit higher on the rock, I might get a better perspective and improve the composition. So let's do that now. Once the sun set, the light disappeared quite quickly, so it was a little bit of a mad rush. I did go up further up the rock and get a different perspective. I quite liked that, and then just before the colour completely disappeared from the cloud, I went round to my left-hand side, went a little bit lower and found a channel where, if I timed it right, the water came through the channel and was quite a nice leading line. So if that image turned out, I'll show you it at the end of the video. So we're going to pack up now because the light has pretty much completely gone and we have got a little bit of a climb back to the car. So if you enjoyed the video or the images that I took, please give it a like below, subscribe if you haven't already. But until next time guys, thanks very much for watching.